People engaged, it's time for Dueling Decades. The Matrix and Blade versus Bloodsport and Renegade. Strap on that cap, bust out the power glove. Come fight for what you love.
Dueling Decades.
Poop culture, popping pins, dropping hand grenades. Van Halen locked in Mortal Kombat with David Gray. Banner Ballet and Sick, Iron Maiden, GNR. Come fight for what you love.
Dueling Decades.
Broadcasting from the BioBidet Studios, where water does it better. Greetings, Retro Warriors, and welcome to another episode of Dueling Decades, the totally awesome retro game show where Player 1 and Player 2 take the 80s and 90s and try to one-up each other as we debate these two dope decades. On this episode of our game, I, Mark James, the Amish hippie nightmare, try once again to pick up a victory in our singles division as I prepare myself for a Dueling Decades video games duel. Coming into this match armed with 1989 as I take on this man.
That's Bo Beecraft, or should I say I'm Bo Beecraft, and I'm representing 1999, the year that had some video games in it. And I'm going to tell you what those video games are.
And let me introduce to you the special guest referee for this episode, the Walter Day of the Bidet, Judge Man Crush.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited to be behind the desk with the gavel, even though I don't have one. I'm going to ask a lot of questions. Convince me.
All right. And the rules of our game, well, they're quite simple. A coin flip will decide which team goes first. The winning competitor will decide the topic of each round out of the 5 Dueling Decades categories: movies, television, music, news, and hot products. Although tonight's action will all revolve around video games. So all of the categories have to be video game themed. And the first 3 rounds are worth 1 point each, with rounds 4 and 5 worth 2 points apiece. The judge's ruling will determine who wins each round, and the individual with the highest overall score after 5 rounds will be the victor. Gentlemen, let's play some Dueling Decades.
Yeah. All right. It just so happens that I have this old beer cap at my desk because I don't.
Is it a Red Dog cap?
Actually, this looks like a Modelo Especial because it still has the foil on the top, so you know it's good.
Damn. If it was Red Dog, I'd tell you to put your thumb over the bottom so it looks like Batman eating pussy.
That's not going to happen. All right.
If you look at the Red Dog logo upside down, it's Batman eating pussy.
All right. Well, now I have to Google this.
Once you see it, you'll never unsee it, man.
You're never going to find a red dog, so you might as well just go into Google Images. All right, so we're going to do gold side is heads. Back side of the cap is tails. Let's have who wants to call it? Bo wasn't on last week. Let's have Bo call it.
All right. I'm going to go with something everybody should always strive to get: heads.
Unless you're making moves.
Of course it had to go on the fucking floor. It is.
Oh, great. Now I got to get up and move.
Sadly, it is tails.
Oh. Well, what do you
All
do?
right.
So that means Mark has control of the board.
I'm glad Mike just popped up out of nowhere.
Surprise! It's a fucking triple threat match.
Oh, get out of my ass. Oh.
What?
That's right.
What?
With Man
Do
Crush.
we need to start this whole recording over?
Oh, my God.
No. This is the shock that I wanted right here. We're throwing out something new. We're going triple threat in this. Mike's in this shit, and he's representing what, Mike?
1994.
Oh, fuck.
Oh.
Wow.
So now we have, and something John talks about all the time, is this big 10-year discrepancy, how things change a lot. You guys are pretty much 5 years different from one another.
We got a
pretty
nice
much.
middle of the road
So,
guy.
It's going to be interesting. So this is what we're going to do. Since Mark won the coin toss, we're going to have a second coin toss right here.
How about
Mark,
a coin purse?
Since you won, call heads or tails.
All right, I'm calling it.
All right.
Tails.
Heads it is. All right. Mike, you just jumped in and you get to fucking pick the board.
Oh, nice. I don't even know where to go with this.
You could start by taking that shirt off. You look uncomfortable.
Oh, you should see what I look like underneath the shirt.
I think he's asking.
I'm not asking. I'm telling.
I'm gonna go with news.
All right.
Ready.
All right.
Sell me.
All right. So in April of 1994, MGM and Sega of America announced that they would jointly create video games and movies and television programs. Sega and MGM said that they would base their new products on original ideas, but also said they would develop games based on upcoming movie releases. Though it never happened, Sega and MGM were supposed to make a Sonic the Hedgehog movie in 1994. It appears there were creative differences between Sega and MGM dropped the project. But this November of 2019, Sonic will finally see the big screen, but it's being distributed by Paramount.
Wow.
Yeah, big stuff. A deal that never really happened.
Oh man. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have one news story, you have two.
I have two.
All right, go for it.
All right. My second story is the Sega Channel wins Popular Science's Best of What's New award for 1994. The Sega Channel was a cable subscription that allowed Sega Genesis owners to play a rotating library of games. Subscribers would purchase a Sega Channel adapter that would fit in the cartridge slot, and your cable wire would attach to it. Players could download games on their system and would be erased when powered off. The service was $15 a month plus a $25 activation fee. At its peak, the service had over 250,000 subscribers. The service also offered demos, contests, and cheat codes. The Sega Channel officially ended in 1998.
Damn, short run.
Do you guys remember that, though? That was
I
like the
don't.
coolest fucking thing, man.
That's really cool. I didn't know about that. 250,000. That's a pretty decent number.
Yeah.
Especially then. When you think
Yeah,
about
that's what I'm
1994,
thinking.
yeah. Now, what were they doing? Was this dial-up?
But actually, the technology actually forced a lot of cable companies to update their system, and we probably wouldn't have got broadband internet as quickly as we did if it wasn't for the Sega Channel. It's pretty interesting. I don't know all the technical details. It's above my pay grade, but
It's interesting that started in 94. It seems like they were a little ahead on the curve, like maybe a little too ahead.
Sega's always a little too ahead. That's their biggest problem. Had the Dreamcast come out like a year later and had a DVD player, it probably would have lasted longer than like 3 years.
All right. So we're going to Mark. Since you came in.
All right, we're gonna. All right, for my news, I went straight to the news source. I went to newspapers to find out what people were talking about for video games in 1989. And I found a couple of great articles that really encapsulate what the video game industry was dealing with at the time. This first one I found in the Messenger Inquirer, that's out of Kentucky, on Sunday's edition, July 30th, 1989. The headline reads, Nintendo the champ, but strong challengers emerge. And this was an Associated Press story that was picked up nationwide. The article I have just happens to be out of Kentucky. And it really talks about how Nintendo, who came in 1986, has gotten to the point in 1989 where their projections for the sales, they're projecting near to $3.5 billion in sales in this year. And this article goes on, and it really projects Nintendo as being the big heavyweight. But then on the article, it talks about this other company, NEC, and how they're going to be launching a rival system, which is the Atari TurboGrafx 16, and how that's going to challenge and take out Nintendo. And then they're also going to get rivals from another company called Sega, who has another product coming out soon as well. So it foreshadows the possible contention that Nintendo is going to be facing. We all know how that turned out. I think TurboGrafx 16 didn't excel the way people thought it would. But I think this article written by the Associated Press, it has some really nice stats in it, and it really is a nice foreshadowing to what we saw in the years to come. It says that Nintendo has forecast sales this year at $2.6 billion. And that's up from 1988's $1.7 billion. The entire industry, Nintendo says, will profit $3.4 billion this year, compared with $2.3 billion last year. So we're really on the merge of a booming industry in 1989, and Nintendo at the time was at the forefront, although facing competition. And they weren't just facing competition from competitors, which rolls me into my second news story. They were facing competitors on the home front as well. Another article I have here, this one's out of the Detroit Free Press on, where the hell's the date on? April 4th, 1989. The title of the article is The Age of Nintendo. This one was written by Jerry Adler, and I'm going to post this up on our Dueling Decades website so you guys can read the full article, because it is an absolute gem. This guy has no clue about video games in the industry, and he just totally trashes them. I'll just give you a few samples of how he opens.
I love these articles.
It's fantastic. He talks about the Nintendo Entertainment System is an oblong plastic box that sits atop the television set about the size of a family Bible, costing in its various versions from around $80 to $150. There seems to okay, and then we'll skip that. Okay. Inside of it is madness. Inside, creatures swoop down from inside the clouds and send you to a swift, horrible death. Inside, Mike Tyson stands 128 pixels tall, grinning his wolfish Street Fighter's grin, and cocks his mighty fist at your head. Inside is a silicon chip that fulfills the vision of Blake. To see a world in a grain of sand and a heaven in your wildflower, hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. It is a toy, but it is more than a toy. It is a whole new medium, an immensely powerful agent for disseminating culture. Then it goes on to say that 11 million of them have been sold, and then nearly 50 million are to be into homes. And the culture that it's disseminating, of course, is pure junk, he says. And it just goes on as a warning. And this article actually continues on a second page where it gets even juicier. And they really talk about, do you guys remember when they had, people were complaining of Nintendo-itis, about how you get, basically carpal tunnel syndrome?
Yeah.
It talks about that and how there was a kid who played for 4 hours straight and went fucking crazy. And it's really
whacking off.
Yeah.
You can get carpal tunnel from that.
Yeah.
And they keep talking, he keeps talking about the Mario Brothers as these like mute mustachioed men. It's really bad, and it's really fear-mongering is what it comes out to about the video game industry. And nothing encapsulated it more than the closing of this article. Is Nintendo's success is predicated on its feel for what is distinctive about the American psyche, says anthropologist David Surrey of Peters College in New Jersey. Aggression, xenophobia, competitiveness over cooperation. So much so that Surrey is studying how video games are helping immigrants assimilate into American culture.
Okay.
So, Jake, if that's not fear-mongering, I don't know what is. So they're warning you that
a bunch of immigrants running alongside an old black dude on a bicycle just because they saw it in Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Oh, I mean, I can break the wall with my fists like Mario? But yeah, so they warned you about how it's going to destroy your children. It's going to turn them into, basically mind-crazed idiots. But there's one thing in this article that really kind of spooked me out. It says, as night falls in America, you can hear the crying rising of the dens of the family rooms of a troubled nation. No Nintendo until you've done your work, or not before school, or only an hour a night, or a common solution that children need sleep and they should only play on the weekends. This was written in 1989. I still have this argument in my house daily, except it's Xbox now and not Nintendo.
Yeah.
So that's
It's
the one creepy thing about this. But that's what I got for news. Beecraft, what do you got, man?
Oh, for news. Well, it was hard for me to argue this one because I remember specifically you could rent this from my grocery store, which is just bizarre in hindsight. But some of the biggest news to come out of 1999 as far as video games are concerned, and Mike kind of touched on this a little bit ago, the Sega Dreamcast was released in North America on September 9th, 1999. Be the company's final home video gaming system in its 18-year run in the console market. Here's a breakdown of the Dreamcast stats. Sold 9.13 million units before being discontinued a very short time later in March 2001. So this thing had like a really short shelf life, I guess if you want to call it that. Set at $199 at its introductory price. So you look at that now, that's pretty cheap, in comparison to stuff like the PS4, the Xbox One, all that stuff. So like Mike said, had this come out maybe just a few months later, had a DVD player and everything in it, might have been a bit of a game changer. But a lot of popular games released for this platform. Crazy Taxi. One of my favorites was Ready to Rumble Boxing, and that was specifically because I would have been about 11 years old at the time of the release of this thing, and I thought it was just astounding that the women's boobs jiggled in the when they jumped.
I think that's when it started, actually. The jiggling. No, I'm dead serious.
It might have been.
That's when it
actually, but
that whole Sprite thing came to where they can jiggle the boobs
right
now. That's
so like you kind of touched on. A lot of people consider this console really ahead of its time because of the stuff like the graphics and being a reasonable price point and everything. But shortly thereafter, it would kind of meet its demise because you had the announcement of PlayStation 2. You had Nintendo's GameCube. You had Microsoft announcing the original Xbox console. So they would all arrive pretty quickly after Dreamcast introduction to the whole video game scene. In 2009, IGN named the Dreamcast the 8th greatest video game console of all time, citing its innovations and software as driving forces behind it, being one of the top-tier consoles in the history of the industry. IGN said the Dreamcast was the first console to incorporate a built-in modem for online play, and while the networking lacked the polish and refinement of its successors, that was the first time users could seamlessly power on and play with users around the globe. So this, of course, that's the way everybody plays video games now. There's really no non-online element to any video game. So on the same token, Dreamcast really incorporated in-game audio chat and downloadable content. So they really kind of, had it not been for the Dreamcast introducing the online console play, the in-game video chat, the downloadable content, way back in 1999, video gaming as we know it might be a lot different today. Maybe not. We probably still would have had those advances, but I think Dreamcast certainly set the tone for that. So that's why I'm going with the launch of the Dreamcast in 1999.
all right.
Wow, solid.
That's pretty huge.
I love the Dreamcast. People knock it all the time, but the sports games on the Dreamcast were the best. There was nothing at that time that could come close to it.
Now the 2K games and Virtua Tennis, a lot of those they still look really fucking good. Or Seaman, you ever play Seaman?
I know, but I lost a few last night, if you know what I'm saying.
Oh, I do. It's all over my rug.
Overboard. Well, they used it was really weird. I tried this once in college. I took the game Dreamcast disc, put it in my computer, and I realized, like on the NFL games, you could open up all the images off the disc. They were all like GIFs or JPEGs, and you could open them all up. That's what they used for the game images.
He just did this last week, actually.
No, this was a long time ago.
What's your second news story?
My second news story? Ooh, that was a tough one. Not necessarily news. Well, I guess it could be news. Pepsi actually released a video game in March 1999. Yeah, Pepsi Man, a Japanese exclusive release for the PlayStation, developed by Pepsi, released in March 1999 in Japan. So essentially, this is kind of, I guess I'd kind of equate it to, in a way, like Paperboy.
Yeah, kind
of. The whole setup of the game. Basically, Pepsi Man is running. You have to avoid all these obstacles by jumping or kind of dodging them or getting out of the way. Like the ultimate goal of the game is to help Pepsi Man deliver an ice cold refreshing Pepsi to people in different circumstances. Like you'd have a military guy in the desert or something that obviously needed a Pepsi, not water, because fuck that. So like it's kind of self-explanatory, these type of games. If the player gets hit by an obstacle too many times, they got to restart from the latest checkpoint. Each stage ends with Pepsi Man being chased by an object, including, yes, a giant Pepsi can, which defeats the entire premise of the game in my eyes. In between stages, though, there's like these interstitial video segment type things where they show a video of an American man, because obviously why would he be Japanese if it's a Japanese exclusive game? But he's sitting there drinking Pepsi, eating chips and pizza while he's watching television. So obviously if this was a Japanese man, he would be being much more productive and just eating fucking chips and pizza and watching TV. So that was maybe not necessarily quite news, but something I thought newsworthy was that Pepsi decided they were going to release a video game in Japan, because why not?
Interesting. And it actually has a big it has a lot to do with memes too. I remember reading an article about it a long time ago that they used the game to develop early memes and all that shit like that. So it's got some significance, got some legs. But let's look at all of your picks, because there's a lot of shit to go over here real quick. Mike, starting with yours, I already forgot the first one that you said.
It was Sega and MGM announcing that they were going to partner.
That's trash. So we'll throw that one out. The second one you had though, about the Sega, what's the name of the system was?
Sega Channel.
Sega Channel. That's pretty friggin' huge. However, I'm going to knock you because, and I know this one for a fact, you missed the ratings that came out in 1994 because of all like the Mortal Kombat shit that happened in 93. That, and I remember this because I was in high school. The uproar, monumental. Like everyone was trying to like ban those games because of the violence. So the next year they came out with the rating system. And I think it was like around the summertime in 1994. And you did not mention that. So I got to knock you on yours.
Oh, man.
Mark, your second story, it is fucking scary because that is still today. And I know you threw that out there because it was funny and like it's cool to find people that are wrong that do reviews, but I don't know how wrong that guy actually is, because a lot of stuff that you said, I mean, how many kids do you see these days that are just straight up like drones, like just want to play video games, don't go outside and all that shit. So that is fucking scary.
But go on and read the full article, and I mean, it really sets it up like it's gonna rot your brain, and you know.
Yeah. And I love those. I anytime we can find a movie review where I think the last one we found was for Breakfast Club, somebody trashed it. It's really fun to find those ones. Well, yeah, aside from her trashing it now, somebody trashed it in February 85. Their story I think is really huge because you're starting that competition, and Sega Genesis, I was always a Nintendo kid, and that was only because my parents wouldn't buy me anything else, but they did buy me a TurboGrafx 16, and that thing was cool, but at the same time, like, it didn't have any games that you could find easily, and it was expensive. All I remember was playing Bonk. So, but the Genesis, I always wish I had because the gameplay was better. I remember going to my buddy's house just to play his freaking Genesis because the games were better than the NES in my eyes. So that's kind of cool. You're starting to see that competition, and that, you know, obviously through the 90s, that goes on for a long time. So that's big. And then, Bo, with yours, this is where it's tough because you got the Dreamcast, and like you said, that did kind of start the whole online thing. And obviously, gaming wouldn't be like it is today if we didn't start then. But it doesn't mean that created it, but they were so ahead of their time on everything. Like Mike said, if they had just waited, because I think it was 2001 when the Xbox came out and PlayStation 2, I think they came out in the same year, right? They're both 01. And then GameCube maybe 02, or was that 01 also?
Yes.
So
in the ballpark.
It kind of played a role in that. I'm sure that's why they ditched it for PlayStation 2. Oh, man, this is tough. It's basically between 89 and 99. I'm going to have to go with 99 on this one.
Oh,
Just because of the whole online factor of it. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, because that's all gaming is now. So I'm trying to look at it from, where things were. Mark, if yours was a little bit more specific about maybe the Genesis being released in 1989, then I would have been all over it. But I don't know what that article said. It sounded like it was coming out, not out already. So, and then Mike, man, if you had the rating system combined, I think you would have taken the round, but you didn't throw it in there. So 99 gets a point.
Dueling Decades.